Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the High Ticket Coaching and Consultant Strategy and Growth Show. Now, if you're watching this interview anywhere else but within our private community called High Ticket Client Attraction Inside the Circle, be sure to come join us. We definitely love to have you. So we've over the past few weeks, really, our community has grown. I think last a week ago, it was about maybe 5,800 members. Today we're like 6,300 members, I believe. But if you're not a part of our community and you're a coach, consultant, or service provider, and you're looking to surround yourself with some really awesome individuals who are really making dents and really crushing it within the coaching and consultant field, I would highly recommend coming and check us out. So with that being said, today I want to introduce you to one of our the members of our community, Linda Wilson. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Extus. It's lovely to be here, and hello, everybody.
Awesome. Great having you here. So tell us, Linda, what is it that you do?
So I help disconnected and unhappy business owners, reconnect to their passion and their love of life. What I find is that many people who come to me, they've kind of hit a bit of a brick wall, Extus. They've been traveling through life and they have suddenly realized that actually life is doing them, they're not doing life. And they've really made a choice to change that approach and really get back into the driver's seat. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of people out there walking around with just a sense of real disillusionment and disconnection. And now more than ever, we have an opportunity to really reassess what we want our life to represent, the contribution that we want to make, and what it is that we can do differently.
Love that. And I love what you just said here as far as there's a lot of individuals who feel like you said life is happening to them versus them being in control of their lives. So why do you think that's the case? What do you think causes that?
I think there's a huge amount of fatigue, but there's also a lot of, dare I say it, emotional laziness. And we are creatures of habit. Ordinarily, what we seek out is routine and habit. And the dilemma with that is that it can become pretty bland, pretty blah. And we do put up with this for long periods of time. But eventually, there's sort of that waking moment where we recognize, hang on a second, this is not enough for me. Either my business is not serving me the way that I wanted it to, my relationship is not the way that I imagined it would be. I'm not connecting to my family, my kids, my partner the way that I wanted to. And so there's just this dawning sort of awareness that there is more. But where do you go to find that?
Mm-hmm. So I guess that is the question. Where do you go to find that?
Well, a lot of people go to some of the really negative spaces. So they seek out or they become involved in more of the addiction side of things. So they might move into alcohol or drugs or other forms of addiction, because what they're looking for is that peak of neurochemicals, that spike of neurochemicals that actually makes us feel alive and vibrant and, actually engaged in our life. And of course, that's not sustainable over the long term and actually can create, a huge number of problems along the way. So then it's a matter of finding out, okay, well, who are the people that I know, like, love and trust, who can perhaps inform me about where I need to go? So many of my clients come via referral through people that they know. And referral is a great way to find somebody, because the people that are usually referring are people that you trust and who maybe are achieving something that you're interested in or wanting for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. So in essence, something you mentioned, as far as we're creatures of habits, right? As you go through life, you've developed certain habits, whether you do it consciously or unconsciously, but you get into those routines, those habits. And then I think Warren Buffett, he said it, where the chains of habits there too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken, right? So when you work with your clients and stuff like that, what do you find in them? What changes do you find that they would need to make to be able to get to where they want to get to?
Well, the really interesting thing about habits is how unconscious many of them are. And there's a reason why our habits become unconscious, because it's a lot less work for our brain. When our mind and our brain don't have to think about things and we've kind of moved into that automatic mode, then we're actually saving a lot of resources, because I'm sure you, Extus, are making lots of decisions every single day. Most of us are. And so wherever our brain can kind of put something off to the side and ignore it, it will, and it will become a habit. And the way that we break down habits that we no longer want is, one, to become aware of them. So we look at the way that we're being in our life, or we're looking at the things that we're doing that aren't producing results. And we pay very, very careful attention to how that habit, where it shows up, when it shows up, what the triggers are. And as soon as we know what the triggers are, we are actually able to intervene. So there's great work being done by this, by a number of different authors. Atomic Habits is one of the books that I recommend to people. The other author is Charles Duhigg, and there's a fantastic researcher in Australia called Dr. Gina Cleo, who's doing some amazing work regarding habits. But the place where we need to intervene is where the trigger is. So for example, if you wander through your door and the very first place you go is to the television, you switch on the television and then suddenly the rest of your day disappears, then what you're looking at is the trigger being walking through the front door and the emotions associated with your day. So we can intervene in a number of different ways. We change the place we enter the house, or we check in on our feelings prior to walking through the front door. So there's a number of different ways that we can actually intervene in a habit to make sure that it's actually a habit that we want, rather than a habit that's sort of, eliminating the rest of our life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's powerful stuff. So something you mentioned, you said with habits, it's one of those places where it's kind of like the brain shortcut, right? So the brain, it just loves shortcuts, and wherever it can figure out, okay, how do I make this easier? How do I make these decisions? I know I have to make all these decisions. So how do I kind of condense and chunk things down so I could just automate it in a sense, right? So how does someone go through, because so which means that the process of changing a habit would be doing the hard thing, which is not the shortcut, which is actually taking the time to actually figure out what's going on. And it's kind of like a conscious type of a process to figure it out. But not just that, but stick with it for a sustained period of time. What is the saying, like 66 days to like build a new habit or something? How does someone,
There's a lot of variation. It's
Mhm.
just in the time frames around how long it takes to change a habit.
Mhm.
And I just want to go back a little bit. Consciousness is absolutely the first key. But what has traditionally happened in terms of people wanting to change things in their life is that they look at behaviour change. And the dilemma with behaviour change is that it's an accumulation of habits. So there's an accumulation of habits that create a behaviour. So by the time we get to the behaviour, many of the habits are already there. So we really do have to step back from our behaviour and go right down into the nitty-gritty of the habit and break down the habit. And then what we need to do is make the change that we're looking for absolutely incremental and tiny. And the reason that we do that is that we have to build on a pattern of success. And so if you go straight to behavior change, it's not sustainable. If you go to these tiny little micro steps and over a period of time implement a micro step that's heading in the general direction of the new behavior or the new way of being or the new way of thinking, then you're far more likely to succeed. So rather than saying I'm going to go for a 5-mile jog every day, actually you should start with just making sure you put your sneakers on and then progress from there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're saying when it comes to actually changing the habit, developing a new one, I'm starting with the smallest thing you possibly can. So instead of going on just saying, hey, 50 miles today, I've never ran before, but it's 50 miles. Start off with, no, just get your running shoes on, get it tied, and start walking.
Exactly. And don't even make it a big walk. You can start with something really small, because what we want is for those tiny little habits to actually become our automatic. So if you're not running at all every day, putting your sneakers on is a new thing that you're learning to do. But once that becomes automatic, then you add in a little bit of extra distance, and then a little bit more distance. And then you might run for a period of time and walk for a period of time. But each of those things needs to fall into the automatic category. So building sustainable habits is a work over time, and it really is a work of consciousness, just really staying with yourself and being aware of the triggers that sort of happen along the way, so that you can work with them.
Awesome. So when clients come to you, what typically are you seeing are the biggest challenges that they're facing?
Yeah, well, often it's like when we have a new project, we are really passionate about it. We're doing everything that we possibly can to have that project succeed. And then over a period of time, we start to sort of have some of those really positive and important small tasks fall away. And so then, of course, we're less enthusiastic. We start to procrastinate. We start to get disconnect slightly from what it is that we're wanting to achieve. And that's when people start to feel like, there's just no sort of buzz in their life anymore. So my job is to discover, well, why did you start that business in the first place? What was it you were wanting to achieve? And really help people to reconnect to their why, their purpose, and their passion. And once we do that, then we actually reconstruct life around making sure that those things are actually at the absolute heart of any habit change or any decision making, or any big changes that they might want to make in their life.
hmm Awesome. Love it. Love it. And how long does that process take? Is it something that you find I know it probably varies for most individuals, but is there a typical duration on average you've seen?
Yes, so some people are really ready, and all they need is about 90 days, and they are up and running, because they've already realized that what's missing is that sort of sense of purpose and understanding of their true values. And so they can redirect fairly quickly. For other people, you are breaking down habits of a lifetime, thinking styles of a lifetime. So I work with people over a 12-month period, sometimes longer. The shortest amount of time that I would work with a person is maybe 3 sessions. And during that time, I tend to do a lot more of the emotional work first, and then they disappear for a while, and then they come back when they're ready to do the really structured approach to change.
hmm And where do you believe that someone should start, right? Because I know with everything, when we have issues in our life and those different things come up, our brain, we say, I know the answer. I know exactly what my problem is. I know exactly what I need to do to fix it. But then when we go down the path, we start realizing that the things we thought were the case and the solutions or the thing is it doesn't turn out to be what we think it is. So with your clients, do you find any type of places where the they have some type of maybe a misconception in terms of what they think the problem is and what they should do versus what the actual truth of the reality is?
Yeah. Well, the other thing that is very automatic for human beings is our belief systems. And often our belief systems are unconscious. So often I'm actually starting there with people, actually having that conversation around, well, if you're unhappy in your life, what do you believe your life should be? Because a big portion of my work is helping people actually manage their stress levels. And stress is when your expectations don't match your reality. And so when we look at, well, what are your expectations and then what is the reality? And it's very clear that there is a huge disconnect between those two things. And that's where we start. Well, okay, what are you doing that's proactive, positive, and productive, that is actually going to create those things that you want in your life? And are they really those things? Because this is the other thing that people struggle with. Many of the goals that they set are goals that they think they should be setting, rather than goals that actually have real emotional congruence for what they want to contribute and who they want to be in the world. So if you set a goal that you actually either don't believe in or have no emotional connection to, it's very, very difficult to proceed with those goals in a sustainable way.
Hmm. Now, what about, I've heard a fascinating, I'm not sure if you've heard about that, where, because with goals, right, I realize some individuals, I'm not sure if that's the case, but some individuals, they don't like setting goals. I forgot what book I read, but they said there's some individuals who set goals and there's some individuals who just solve problems, right? So I know
Mm.
there's a lot of, and I kind of noticed that within some of my clients as well too, which is some individuals are like, I gotta have this goal, I gotta be driven, and others are just like, the goal isn't that motivating, it's just like, I gotta solve a problem. Just what's the problem? I could work for more problem space. Have you ever noticed that as well too? As you're
Absolutely.
learning?
I mean, I was a person who used to run screaming from the room with just the word goals. And it took me a long time to actually understand why that was. And it was because of a belief system that I believed that then the goal would control me rather than I'm actually the driver of any of the goals that I set in my life. So I think that's a really familiar thing for many people is they feel then that there's this burden of expectation that they must achieve it. And I think to achieve our goals, we just need to be able to problem solve along the way. So when I work with people with goals, we actually put those goals right off in the distance somewhere, because between the goal and where you are now can often be a lot of problems to be solved, a lot of change to be made, a lot of habits to break and make, and a lot of introspection and work on emotional intelligence and developing that consciousness around the goal. So we put the goal over there once we've established it is actually a real goal, and then we solve the problems that get in the way of the achievement of that goal. And I think that's a really important way to think about it, because no goal is a straight line, right? I've never had a goal that's a straight line. Life happens, things happen, we get interrupted in some way. We have children, we buy a dog, we sell a house, stuff happens. And so we also have to be prepared for other things to come in and get in the way of that clear view and vision that we have of our goal, problem solve those, and then continue to move forward.
Hmm. Okay, so something you said that's kind of stood out to me, you said make sure it's a real goal.
Mm.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I have never been, I'll just use myself as the example. I have never been motivated by a beautiful car or a really big house. Those things have never really motivated me. What I'm motivated is by my feelings. So do I feel happy? Do I feel accomplished? Do I feel satisfied in my life? So for someone to set a goal for me that is, you're going to have that, you want that car. Actually, I really don't. And I have no motivation to get that car. What I want to feel in my life is a sense of peacefulness and calm and contribution. And from that, I know I'm going to make a really good living. But it's not the car that's the goal for me. So it's really about finding out what are those things that are an expression of your desires, that are an expression, a material object of that is an expression of what you really want in your life and what you're really connected to. And it is different for every single person. For some people, the car or the house or the holiday is really a motivator, and that is completely fine. For some people, it's a bank account, a number in a bank account, but it has to be true for you if you're going to get there and still be a healthy, happy person when you get there.
Hmm. Yeah, that is so powerful. And I know that's the biggest thing in business, because I know for myself, I definitely got caught in that trap as well too when I was first starting my coaching and consulting business. First few years struggled so much, struggle, especially on the financial side of this thing, which is trying to figure out, okay, how do you serve and how do you still get paid for it as well too? And I kind of my first couple of years, all I did was I got really good at getting into debt. And but once I figured it out, once I cracked the code on how do you get clients, how do you make the business work, and I started realizing that because I came from that frame of, okay, I've always been struggling, I never had enough clients, all these different things. It was like such a struggle. And when I really started figuring out how do you get paid, how do you actually build a business, how do you make things work, all of a sudden, now I'm setting these goals like $50,000 per month, $100,000 per month, $300,000 per month, and set all these goals. And I hit all of them. But the issue was I started realizing that it didn't really fulfill me, right? That I kept keeping my eye on the money, but then when I kind of switched to saying, okay, I figured out the financial part of this thing. Why am I really doing this? And then I started realizing that my purpose, my why, is really to be able to help individuals basically transform their financial destinies. Take someone who's been struggling financially, doesn't even feel like they can make $10,000, $20,000 per month, but having them, like, showing them that it's possible. And I realized that's what I needed to get back in touch with. And that's kind of what kept me saying, okay, now I see what I got to do. And now I see the next phase. So you're so right about finding that purpose, finding that why.
Mm. And I love that as a story. I mean, this is why coaching is so powerful, because it's impossible for us to know everything that we need to know about every situation all of the time. And it's about finding that person that you resonate with, who specializes in your area, to upskill you, to support you, to actually share with you the knowledge and the wisdom that they've gained, sometimes over a really rocky journey. And so if you wanted me, for example, to build your business from a systems and processing direction, no, that I am not the person for that job. But if you want to feel engaged and connected and passionate about your life, and re-engaged and reconnected and re-energized about your business, then that's the kind of thing that I do. So finding a mentor or a coach or a leader in your life who has the skills that you are wanting to develop in yourself, that's the fastest and most powerful way to actually create that change. And Extus, I love that you said you found out how to stay connected with your business by doing the kind of business that you want to do. And so important, because that is sustainable. We're not saying that it's not hard work. We're not saying that it's not at times, really takes effort. But we are saying that at the end of the day, when you make that connection, when you show that person something, it really makes life, a great place to be.
Yeah, love that. So what is your background? What did you do before you started your coaching business?
So the reason that I have the title Dr. Linda Wilson is because my background has always been a fascination and a curiosity about people, and I turned that into study. And my study was traditional Chinese medicine, so mind-body medicine. And then I moved on to do a graduate diploma in education and health education, and I've done a whole lot of other things since then. But the main theme for me has always been this real fascination with people and what makes us tick. So I did neuroscience to understand the brain and how it is that we're chemically driven and what's going on in our brain when we're feeling passionate or depressed or anxious or stressed. But what I did discover is that we have nowhere near enough answers about how our mind actually works. And it always comes back to each and every individual, the belief systems they hold, what it is that they're really passionate about, and how can we bring those two things together and make them, integrate them together so that, there is a direction in life that feels good and sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Love it, love it. So tell me this, right? So what is one skill you'd say you've mastered over your life that has gotten you to your level of success today?
Mm. I'd have to say I have a real instinct about people. And I think that's just from years of really sitting and observing people, because I've always been, for the last 25 years, I've been in a clinical setting where I'm dealing with clients every day. And you start to hone some of those sort of skills that you have. So I would say it's having an intuitive sense of people, and also picking up pretty quickly if what they're saying is actually what they're meaning. So, sometimes you hear people talking and you just think this is not what they're actually wanting to say, and you might introduce a different concept, and it really sits with that person. So I'm also very good at that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And what about habits wise? Are there any habits you would say, I know there's a lot, but what's one habit that would be responsible, you'd say is responsible for your success today?
Wow, that's a great question. I'll tell you a habit I'm needing to develop more powerfully and stronger is actually organization, because I tend to be very creative in my work. So for me, it's organization. And interestingly enough, I find that that is a huge one for many of my clients as well. We are so busy in our lives, even during this time of sort of social distancing and lockdown. And I know that there's different things happening in different parts of the world, but here in Australia, we have had, 3, nearly 4 months of really containing our lives into much smaller spaces. And what that has revealed for many people is some of the missing pieces and why they're so disorganized. And time is a big part of that. We're a big country, just like yourselves. We spend a lot of time traveling. Without that travel, suddenly people are able to get in and start cleaning up their lives. So organisation would have to be a really huge part. And I don't help with the organisation side of things. I help with the mindset around what it takes. And even I am having to reset some of my habits around reorganisation, because it's never perfect.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. Love that. That's one thing I started realizing of different. Because for me, I thought business is a fascinating place, right? Because I know for myself, one of the things I try to do, because I realize there's personal development in business. I think that's a thing I learned a little bit too late. Because in business, I really thought I had to do every single thing, right? I thought I had to be good at every single thing. But then I started realizing with personal development, which is your personal life, that's where improvement, like for yourself, you have to work on all of the skills. But I realized with business, I think a key breakthrough I made is that to really just focus on what you're good at, right? Just really say, okay, this is what I'm good at. That's just what I'm going to do. But at the same time, having a team of individuals who can support you. Because I know I realized most of especially traits, right? I realized for myself, the biggest issue was I was trying to develop so many traits in my business that I kind of almost killed the business simply because I was trying to become the person who could do all of it. And as you and I know, that's never going to happen in a business, right? Because there's so many different hats and so many different pieces. So I think surrounding yourself with good people is just so critical. I guess, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts about the team and those different types of pieces as you go through on your journey?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think in the beginning, if you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur and you're in startup phase, it's a very different situation. You pretty much have to just switch out your hats every half an hour or so, and that can be extremely tiring because we don't have every single skill that we need to have a successful business. So over time, building out your team, understanding what your personal strengths are, and knowing that when you're contributing those, you're at your happiest and your most productive, and finding other people, finding the gaps for yourself, finding other people for whom, when they're producing those things, they are at their happiest and most productive. And that's how you build out a really vibrant and healthy team that generally has great dynamics. Do you develop a great culture? Because everybody's injecting what it is that they do well and their strengths.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. Awesome. So it looks like we're running short on time here, Linda. But if someone wanted to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Sure. So find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Linda Wilson, and also you can find me on Facebook, and my tag there is at Stressless Tools.
Awesome. Love it. Well, hey, thank you so much for making the time to be here with us today and sharing your wisdom. Before we end, do you have any final thoughts?
What I would recommend is that people take a moment every single day to ask themselves, if there was one thing I could achieve today that would make me feel happy, what would that be?
Hmm. Love it. Love it. Powerful question. Awesome. Well, let me see. Yeah, I think that's it then. Yeah, awesome. Well, with that being said, hey, thank you so much for being here today, and we'll be in touch. Okay.
Thanks, Extus. Have a great day.
Awesome. You do the
Bye.
same.